Hello everyone, I'm out of breath. If I don't do this now, then I won't be able to do this for a few days, so I need to do this now. And I was going to shave, I was going to wash my hair, I was going to do all sorts of things, but I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to do it now. This is the monthly wrap-up, so so out of breath. So the monthly wrap-up, it's a new thing. I've only done one so far. This is my second one. So my February roundup. So this is quite cool. I've seen monthly wrap-ups by lots of people over the years, and I decided to do it like towards late last year. I decided to start doing it in January, and actually I think it's quite an interesting thing to do. So you review what you've done, say a little bit about what you're going to do, and so I'll talk about the books I've read, and I'll talk about the videos I've done, and I'll talk a little bit about what I'm planning to do next month. And some books that I'm planning to read as well. And the books that I've read is quite varied, it's quite interesting. It goes all over the place. But the last one that I've just finished, I don't know whether to do a separate review of it or read a few other things and then do a thematic video. Once I've talked about it, you can tell me if you feel like I can talk more about it. But it's a very contentious book. It's a very important book, but it's also a book that I wasn't going to read, but then I did read it. So I'll explain that when I get to it. So we're talking about February. So we're just about to, so tomorrow, is it tomorrow? Third? No, today. Today is the 1st of March. Sorry, I do have a bad cold as well. Today is the 1st of March. And so we're looking at February. February started with me reading Razorblade Tears. So I did do a special review on it as well. And I moved things around on my schedule to make sure this came up really quickly, because I was so excited about the review. I wanted to put it up. I wanted people to see it. And it really is the best book I've read for a long time. And it really did affect me. I thought it was so brilliantly written. It's a great plot, fantastic characters, but the way it's written really, really grips you. And absolutely amazing. So I am definitely going to read everything else he's done. So S.A. Cosby, definitely a man to look out for, and I couldn't recommend this enough. Razorblade Tears, definitely recommend it. I have done a separate review, as I said, so check that out on my channel. I'll say a little bit more now in case you don't go there. So it's a crime novel about two fathers who have both lost their sons from a brutal murder that looks like it's a homophobic brutal murder, a hate crime. Both the fathers were homophobic, and one was black, one was white. And they basically, in the first few chapters, realise that they want to find out who did it together. And through that, the book explores attitudes towards the gay community, attitudes towards the race issue, and class as well. Those three, obviously, big areas of political discourse are used really well as part of the narrative as much as anything else in this book. And it's so brilliantly written. You've got to read it. If you think that's an interesting plot, and it really is such a great plot, and the characters are so brilliant, if you feel like it's tweaked your curiosity, honestly, it will not disappoint. So that was how I started the month. So it's a great way to start the month. I finished 5 books in the month, so I've been reading other things but not finishing them. But I've got 5 books to talk about that I finished. So not long after February started, there was a Garb August 1.5. So it was a little way that Ollie wants to mention Garb August before August by doing this sort of interim weekend. So I got involved and I found this to read. It's a Nick Carter book, Time Clock of Death. So I found another one as well, but I'm going to save that till August. And yeah, I mean, it was literally that phrase did what it said in the tin. It wasn't particularly amazing, but it was full of violence and sex and bravado and masculinity and frills, spills. You know, it was all right. I love the Clock of Death. Sorry, Time Clock of Death. And Ollie made a good point. It's good that they differentiated Time Clock and and not other clocks. So Time Clock of Death, Nick Carter. That was my Garb August 1.5. So I'm suppressing a cough while I'm doing this. So that was interesting. It was a nice, fun way of getting involved with the weekend and waving the Garb August flag. Ollie's channel's amazing. I'll give you a link on down below for his channel. I then read this, People from My Neighbourhood. So, have I taken that out? This was interesting. So this is the author that also wrote Strange Weather in Tokyo, which I did review on my channel when I did a video about translated books. And I really liked that book. I thought it was good. I thought it was really interesting and well written, and I wanted to read it. This is really, really interesting. I am going to do a more of a fuller review on this, because I'm going to review this and Strange Weather in Tokyo again, and this, once I've read this, 10 Lives of Mr. Nishino, because then I'll have 3 books by her to talk about. So it'll be talking about the author, which would be cool. So this is really different. It's really short. As I said in a short video I did, it has to be short. It would only work if it was short. It's kind of weird if you want to use it for the Weird March thing that Fiber Artsy is doing. Definitely works with the Weird March thing. It's really difficult to explain, because it's basically like little profiles of different people in her neighbourhood, but it's clearly not realistic. And some of the images and some of the people and some of the buildings even have got properties that just don't. It's not very real. It's not magical realism. It's kind of fantastical. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's just, you know, it's not particularly deep, but it's a bit of fun, and it's very quirky, kind of cute. Yeah, really liked it. So that's the second book I read by her. So that's Hiromi Kawakami. I'm going to read that third one and then do a video on her at some point. But yeah, that was cool. Then I finished my first Ray Bradbury book for the deep dive. So this is it's in lovely condition, probably partly because it's been kept in this. But this is a book that's actually physically from 1984, but it's I only just bought it, and really, really good condition. And these are the stories that Ray Bradbury wrote in the 1940s, the mid-40s. So this is the early part of his career, and it was really fascinating and a really good book. I really enjoyed it. So I am going to talk about that. I'll tell you how I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But that was the first Ray Bradbury book out of my Ray Bradbury deep dive, where I'm going to try and read everything I can. So everything I've got, and I've got quite a lot, but any of the gaps I'm going to try and fill as well. So I can, hopefully, by the end of it, I would have read everything that I can get hold of. So I did do an introductory video on that, if you didn't know about that, which I'll link below as well. But yeah, Ray Bradbury's a great writer, and you can really tell straight away. So this is really early work, but there are some stories. Some of the stories are quite standard. You know, there are lots of the prose style sometimes slips into something that's a little bit more expected, a bit more commonplace. But sometimes you get this magic in some of the, you can tell it's Ray Bradbury on some of them. So yeah, that was really cool. So Memory of Murder, first Ray Bradbury book, down. And then the 5th book I read this month is the one that I said I might do more on, not sure. I'm going to try and keep this one open. I was going to tell you a bit from this. This is why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. This is a really interesting book. It's very important. I knew about it before, and I had decided I wasn't going to read it because I thought it would be preaching to the converted, and I don't know, I didn't put it on some sort of major immediate TBR. I thought I might eventually get to it, but I found it for £1, so I was like, all right, I'll read it. And it's Black History Month, so along with Razorblade Tears, then I think I've honoured Black History Month by reading that and then reading this. This is Really interesting. This is a book by a political commentator who's a black British writer talking about the issue of race in Britain. So a lot of race books you see discussed, and some of the high profile books on race are often talking about the American problem with racism. But here you've got really good racial discourse set in Britain. And when I did a little Instagram post about this, when I first started it, I said it's really good for people who don't get Black Lives Matter. So sadly, there were some people who really didn't get it. They kept saying all lives matter or white lives matter, or, you know, they just kept saying some sort of defensive thing, didn't really get the point that, yes, and Black Lives Matter. It's a really good thing to kind of help explain that. There's also a big chunk in the middle that talks about white privilege. And again, some people don't get it. I mean, just you know, reiterating this idea that part of the reason why I wasn't going to read it initially is because I do understand that. To me, it's common sense. I am a straight white male. I have not faced prejudice in any kind of scale that is even worth talking about. And I just won't. If I do get if I meet someone who's racist against whites, it will be a very different kind of racism. And that's the point, you know, it's one of the points. There's so many different reasons why the term is actually quite an important term. It's not that I go around feeling guilty. That's not what that's about. And actually, that's what she says as well, which is good. It's not about wanting a white person to feel guilty. It's about a white person understanding that there's a historical context to racism. There's a institutionalized, structuralized issue that needs addressing, and she talks about feminism in here. She talks about class. It does touch on those kind of elements that are linked. But one thing that I was kind of relieved about was sometimes when you see people really passionate about this, and they're absolutely right in what they're saying about this real systemic issue and the horrific things that you know, they can cite as examples of things that are a problem and are still happening, all those kind of things. Sometimes you get people that then start talking about not liking white saviour tropes, which I might do another video on that in more detail. But if you understand history, history is about the oppressed and the oppressor working together. So it's about, you know, like, for example, a very obvious example, the suffragettes got the vote because male politicians realised that they were talking sense. So it just, you know, that's just one of those facts of life, that things change because whoever is being victimised or needs change for them, it's the other people that are making the change. So there needs to be some kind of acknowledgement and understanding and alliance. You know, that great word, the ally. You know, that's what we're talking about. So I'm glad that it didn't go down that road. It didn't go down that road at all. I was going to try and find something that sort of mentions that. It says, the perverse thing about our current racial structure is that it has always fallen on the shoulders of those at the bottom to change it. Yet racism is a white problem. It reveals the anxieties, hypocrisies, and double standards of whiteness. It is a problem on the psyche of whiteness that white people must take responsibility to solve. You can only do so much from the outside. I love that, because, yeah, you can only do so much from the outside, and people can do so much from the inside. And, you know, if you accept that there is such a thing as white privilege, we are on the inside. And, you know, we don't face suspicion and, you know, people following us around the shop and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's just not a thing. So, it's really good that she said that. And I think just in general, it's a really good book. One of the hardest bits to read, was the beginning bit. There's a beginning bit about the history of how these things have developed, if you like, in Britain, and some of the explanations about the moments of high immigration and reactions, and, you know, with people like Enoch Powell and some of the recent horrific things that have been done in police custody and stuff like that. And that sort of stuff was difficult to read, but important to read. And again, that was why Black Lives Matter was such a brilliant period of marches, where you'd march, and at the end of the march, you heard people's stories. That was what was good about those marches. You heard people's stories. And there would have been loads of people, I think, because it's not done enough in this country, that would have gone to, like white people, that would have gone to that march thinking about a general impression of racism being an issue, and probably thinking about George Floyd and the American problem, and not realising, not even possibly having the knowledge to realise that there are stories from British black people, British Asian people, British mixed race people. And those stories were what was great when we got to the end of the march, and you had all those speeches with the megaphones and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if you are confused about that kind of thing, or you are adamant that it's all bollocks, read this, because it's explained really well, and it's you know, the tone of it, of the title, and some of the tone of some of the text. There's that sense that she's just fed up of constantly trying to explain what she thinks is the obvious and what I actually think is the obvious as well. So there is that tone to it. But it's interesting because I've got this second-hand copy, and if I find some examples, whoever owned this before didn't like this book, and they keep making comments in it, and it's just really funny. They clearly knew they were going to put it in a charity shop and someone else was going to pick it up, and they've been writing these comments. And the comments are things like, he'll write, I'm assuming it's a he, he'll write on the side of the text, really? And surely that's a problem, the same problem for disabled people. He said that at one point. And it's just like, just bizarre arguments or non-arguments, or just sarcastic comments that clearly this author is not going to read. It's just the weirdest thing to find. So at first I thought someone had annotated it because they wanted to go back to it, and maybe they were using it to study sociology or something. But no, they were arguing with the author on the side of the margins. So that was quite funny. But yeah, all the comments, there was one comment they made when I thought, all right, yeah, fair enough, that's a fair comment. But so much of it was like, this guy just doesn't get it. All this. Loads of comments on the pages, so that was quite funny. So sometimes that can be quite amusing or entertaining to get a second-hand copy and see loads of people writing in it. So that was the 5th book. And then I've got some things that I'm planning to read next month. I'll get to that in a minute. Let's just go over what I've done video-wise for the month. So I started off with David Wiley's Extraordinarily Average tag, which was really good to do, and a few other people have done it. They've been really entertaining to watch. I then did the top 10 lyricists, which, go check that if you're interested in that, and I put 2 songs in there as well. But I talked about 10 lyricists that I love to death. And then I did a little quick video saying that Gub August 1.5 was a go, and I'd picked my book that I was going to read for it. Then I did my master plan for reading, which did go through the rounds a little bit. I did my version of that. And then I did a video that was a new tag celebrating the fact I'd got to 666 subscribers. So thank you very much for that. And I enjoyed doing the video. If anyone else wants to pick up that video, I thought it was a bit of fun. But thank you anyway. The whole point was to, the whole point was to thank people for subscribing. So that was cool. Then I reviewed Razorblade Smile. Then I did a video. We had loads of props in it, which was in praise of magazines. And I had loads and loads of magazines that I went through in this video. So if you're interested in magazines, or you think, oh, what's he going to say about that? That was this month. I did a Happy to Fail video, which was about the Read What You Own challenge. I'm not doing it anymore, and I'll explain why I'm not doing it in the video. I put up a video of Adam Roberts' book Better, which some people commented on it saying that they get why I liked it, but it's not their kind of thing, which is fair enough. But it really impressed me, that book. Then I did a Storathon update, where I talked about some other books I was reading, and then talked about the ones I was reading. And then I did my first video on Harlan Ellison, which I just went through the books, really, that I've got. I've got quite a lot of his books, so I just went through those. And soon, not sure when, but soon I'm going to do my top 10 short stories of Harlan Ellison. Most of his career were short stories. So I'm going to do that in the next couple of months. Then I did a video that was a response to Mike and Mark about monetization. They did really good videos where they were just putting a non-judgmental video up, just saying, this is what I'm going to do, and it's saying why they were going to do it, and discussing a little bit, very gently, about the issues around it. And then I did one that was, I thought it was worth doing my one, because I was going to talk about it from a different perspective, and talked about Kickstarter and the royalties I get for songwriting and stuff like that. So watch that if you're interested in that. So those are what the videos I've done. There is a video coming up soon in the next couple of days, which is going to be a risky one, maybe, I don't know. It's a tag, but it's a tag that has got no books. Well, there's one question, there's one prompt that's book related, but everything else is all related to music and songs. So I'll explain in the video when you see it why. It's on Friday night, and I've tagged loads of people in it. So we'll see how that gets on. But you know, I don't want it to make people think, oh, he's just going to do that now and I'll get off, because I do want to focus on books. But I thought it'd be a fun one to do, and I do explain it in the video why I'm doing it that night. So I'm aware of how long this is, so I'm going to quickly go over what I'm going to hopefully read next month. So I'm still reading this for Historathon, so the history of ancient Rome. I'd like to get to this in March, Legends and Lattes. I keep hearing great things about it, so I would like to read that. I'd like to read that because that's been sort of sticking around my computer desk for ages, so I do want to read that. I am definitely going to go to my next Ray Bradbury book, which is more crime stuff from the same period, and my plan is to read the rest of these that are not in the other book, and then do something that's on his early crime stories. So that's my plan, so I'm going to read that next. I'd like to read this, but I don't know if I'll get to it, but I'd like to. I need to finish this. So this is what I'm reading at the minute for the Historathon. I need to finish that. And I've just bought this. So I've seen the film. It's a film from former Yugoslavia, I think. I really like the film. So I found this and I thought I'd buy it. So I'd like to read that as well. It's a very short book, but I'd like to read it. And I might do some graphic novel reading. So I've got a few to read, and this was one of the ones that I was really excited about, because I love the illustrative style. I don't know anything about it, but I was going to read that. I literally bought it because I like the way that Kathy Malkazian draws. So I love the, which is I think is the right thing to do. If you like the way they draw, you should give it a go. So that's why I bought it. But I don't know much about it. If anyone knows about Percy Gloom, let me know. So there we are. That's my roundup of February. Some stuff there about what I'm hoping to do next month. Look out for the video on Friday. And the reason why is a very exciting reason why I'm putting this thing out on Friday. And hoping to do some live streams as well. And is that it? That's it. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.